So live stream should be up. Volume is up, mic is up. I'm going to just quickly go over my layout that I've got particles white, particles black. I've got collectible, enemy vertical, enemy sign vertical, enemy sign horizontal, and enemy rotate. I've got the player. I've got the score. Those are all my objects for right now. I don't think there's anything that we're not using yet. Over on the event sheet, we've got a global score. We've got system every tick is in touch when things are overlapping. We made a group for the enemy spawn to deal with when the enemies are actually coming out. And then I have a collectible spawn to deal with when the collectible spawn. So we're just kind of grouping things together to figure out where things are going to go. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we have some instructions on the game. So here's where your instructions are starting out. On the actual layout, back over here, I'm going to right-click on this score, and I'm going to clone object type. The reason why I'm cloning object type is because I want to carry over the properties that we had for that. So we're picking up clone object type, and I'm going to drop it again on the player layer. So now I've got score text score 2. I'm going to rename this to txt message. And we're going to change what's on the inside of that to be instructions for the game. And instead of being score 0, it's going to be collect the white circles. Now, do we have them as circles yet? No, they're not circles yet. And right now, I can only see collect the because my text right now is too big. As soon as I get it on here, I'm kind of out of space already. So I've got to adjust the font on this one. 72 will not do for this message. So I'll go try 48, see if that looks all right. That looks all right. I'm going to kind of leave it in the center of the screen. You don't have to go pixel perfect with centering this one. I'm just going to go about and say that we have this object, which is message, and it's going to say collect the white circles. The next thing I'm going to do on this one is I lowered the opacity to 75 on this one. I want to put the opacity back up to 100, so at the beginning of the game it'll start off fully visible. And then after like a second it'll drop down to 75, and then after like another 2 seconds it'll disappear entirely because they've been given the instruction collect the white circles. So I'm going to bump this back up to 100. So now my opacity there for this collect the white circles is there. The other thing I want to do is I want to set this to be on the back of the layout. So I'm going to right click and adjust the Z order, and we're going to go send to bottom of layer. So that's going to go down to the bottom of the layer. And what we're going to do is back on the event sheet, we're going to add a couple of events to deal with this instruction set coming out and then slowly fading away to not being visible. So, did we do an on start of layout yet?
I just have a question. Where did you change the opacity?
Opacity is right over here in this common properties. So once it's selected in the common properties, you'll have layer, angle, opacity.
Yeah,
I bumped that back up to there. So back on the event sheet, I don't think we have an on start of layout yet, so that's what we have to create. So I don't have one. You might have one. I've got player collection. So I'm going to go add event for the system. It's going to be on start of layout. And I'm going to have it wait 3 seconds is my first action. So that's a system. Wait 3 seconds. My next action is going to be set the opacity of text message from 100, which is what it starts at, to 20. So it's going to go, my next action is on text message. Set opacity right there. I'm going to go to 20. And then we'll copy both of these right here. So I'm going to select them both by control clicking, control C to copy, control V to paste. I'll change this wait to just another 2 seconds, and then set the opacity to 0. And I'll give that a preview now and see what that looks like. So now my game should start up. I should have score on the bottom, collect the white circles, which is very visible, kind of fades, and then it disappears. Okay, so we've got that, and so I know kind of the goal of the game. If I restart my window, it's going to be there with my instructions. And it kind of just fades away. So those are our instructions for the game. It's there. You don't need to have an instructions section. All right. For organization, on start of layout, where should on start of layout go? Think about what we've done with our games in the past. Why is it on the top, Josh?
Because it's the first thing that happens once the game loads up.
Once the game loads up, it's the first thing that happened. What's the next thing that's going to happen right underneath on start of layout?
Every tick.
Every tick, because we want to watch those things that are going to happen all the time. So remember, we're going to stack all of our variables that we have up at the top, and we're going to stack all of our on start of layout, every tick, things that happen very often up there on the top. How are we doing so far? Good?
Yeah.
Do you want me to do a pause and check and see, or do you want me to keep going with instructions?
Keep going.
I hear some keep going. Anybody shaking their head? Do they want to pause? All right, I'm going to keep going. So we're going to go back to the event sheet, and we're going to add another global variable. I'm going to use my G key on the keyboard. Excuse me, not G. V is for my global variable. And this one we're going to pull from the other Spike game. We're going to make a variable called isAlive. And that's just going to track whether or not the player has hit into one of the blocks. Okay? So initial value, we're going to start off as 1. It's our binary idea that 1 is on, 0 is off. So right now, when the game starts, we want that variable to be starting at 1. Okay? So we have that there. Then we're going to go find our player is overlapping object. I don't know if we made this one yet. So we have this one here. I'm going to expand out and see. This is just collectible is overlapping collectible. I don't think we made this one, but we're going to make a new event right now. So we're going to add an event here, and it's going to be for the player, and it's going to be is overlapping another object. The object that we're going to pick is going to be enemy rotate to start. And actually, you know what? No, it's not enemy rotate. We need to make 3. We made an enemy's family. So enemy's family will be if it hit anything, the rotate, the horizontal movement ones, or the vertical moving ones. Jacob, don't get lost in the game, okay? Stick with the code that we're doing, okay? So we're going to pick that is overlapping anything from the enemy's family. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go set variable alive to 0. So when that happens, we're going to say the player's not alive anymore, and that's a system, and it's set value. Set value of what? Is alive. We've got 2 variables now, score and is alive. We're using is alive. We're going to set that is alive to 0, okay? And then we're going to do another action on here, and that's going to be asking the system to compare 2 values. Or, well, in this case, it's a variable. We could do compare 2 values or compare variable. It doesn't really matter which one. I'm going to do variable just so I don't have to go in and key in the variable. And I'm going to say if, so this is basically asking if isAlive is equal to 0, then the action we're going to do here is restart the layout. So system restart layout. And I'm going to run a test here and see. So now if I overlap, it's going to set isAlive equal to 0, and then the layout should restart, but we're going to have some issues here. Can anybody think of any issues that would come up right now if we just restart the layout right now?
It's not going to have anything go once the layout is restarted. It's just going to basically reset layout, but it's not anything's going to spawn.
isAlive starts at 0, so what do we need to do on start of layout? Thank you, Matt. So I'm going to go back up to this on start of layout, because I know anytime the layout starts, I want to go and have the system. We're going to go set value of isAlive to 1. So we're going to add that piece of logic in there so that when the layout restarts, isAlive is back to 1 again. It won't do the game over condition. Okay? So let's do a run and test and see how this is working now. Now I got to watch out for blocks because I will get stopped. All right, so this is pretty easy so far. Dodging things. Oh. Collect the white circles. Oh, I think I already... Ooh, mine's flickering right now. Does anybody know why mine's flickering?
Probably something is wrong with your game.
Something's going on. And...
If you hold it over the collectibles, the score just increases.
So let's see. Score. It just restarted, and now things aren't working right. So we're going to go through and see what's going on here. But this is kind of expected because Is Alive is there, and it just kind of keeps on restarting.
It's possible it's resetting the layout, but not resetting the variables.
Yep, that's why we have to go look and see.
Resetting the layout, it puts objects back to their initial position and replaces stuff that got deleted, but it doesn't change any of the variables.
Exactly. So we got to go back there and say, we set Is Alive back to 1 again on the start of layout. We should do the same thing for the score. We should take the score and set the score back to 0. So we'll ask the system to set value. This time we're going to use the variable score, set that one back to 0. So we just want to see that our score goes back to 0. And then we want some things to happen. They add a global variable, system is alive. And I think over here, I want to add in when Is Alive becomes 0, I want to have a wait here so we kind of know you done goofed and you have to actually, see the actual game pause. So we're going to go wait on the system, and we'll say like 2-second wait. And I'm going to drag that and happen before the layout restarts. So a couple things we're going to add in here. If we go and run and look and see. Collect the squares. I'm going to try and collect. My score is going up. Score is going up. Now it just kind of reset, and things were still moving. Things are still going. My score is still there, still going up. So my restart of layout might not be working. So let's go and check and see. The next step that we're going to look at in here is going and taking this system Is Alive equal to 0 and adding it in some of the older code to sort of stop things from spawning when the game is frozen, to stop yourself from being able to move when Is Alive is equal to 0. So some of the things that we're going to add in here, oh wait, did I skip a step? I think I added 2 more actions, have these happen before a system wait. So, these have to happen before the system wait. That's the thing that's going on right now. On start of layout, the opacity message here, this Is Alive is equal to 1, and score 0 needs to happen before 1, or it needs to happen before the wait. So I've got 1 overlapping, it restarts, and it did my little wait for a second. So that's working well, that's restarting, and back in construct, I don't want to be able to move my player if Is Alive is not equal to 1. If Is Alive isn't on, I don't want to be able to move the player. So I'm going to go and select this Is in touch block, add another condition, and I'm going to ask the system to compare variable. And I'm going to say Is Alive is equal to 1. So what that means is that if you're touching the player and Is Alive is equal to 1, then you can still move the player around. Cool. All right. I'm going to go through and kind of add these things in here to a couple other things. So when the enemies are created, I only want new enemies to be created if the game is still going. So I'm going to go up here and copy this system Is Alive equals 1 here, and I'm going to paste it into my 3 enemy creations, so that way new enemies won't be created when Is Alive is equal to 0. And I'm going to do that same thing for the collectible. Every 1.8 seconds it creates a collectible for me to pick up, but only if I'm alive. So let's see what changes those add there. So I'm going to play for a little bit. I already can't move anymore because I hit something, so that part is working. I can collect things, and then something's going to spawn underneath me because that's just the nature of the game right now. I can't move anymore. My game there resets. I can keep going. So we've got the basic idea down, and now we've just got to kind of clean things up. I hit, I reset. There's no more enemies that are spawning on the screen, and it kind of restarts. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go and look and see enemies created. And there's a scenario where an enemy could create underneath where I am right now, just like an enemy right there. I just lost the game because the enemy spawned there on that time. Okay? So with the enemy spawning there, I'm out of luck. So what are we going to do to fix that? Well, we can have the enemies spawn at 0 opacity. So we're going to go back into our action where the enemy family was created. So on created right here, we have this system wait, random 5 seconds. So on created, we're going to add an action here up in the top, and it's going to be set opacity to 0. So this is going to be for our enemy family. Set opacity to 0. And we're going to put that up at the top. So when the enemies are created, they're going to be invisible. And then we're going to go find our every tick condition. And we're going to add a subcondition that says if the opacity is less than 100, let's add 4 to the opacity. So it'll be 4, 8, 12, 16, all the way up to 100, and then it'll stop adding to the opacity. So I'm going to find that every tick, and I'm going to do a subcondition here. So I'm going to go right-click and add a sub-event. And this one is going to be enemies, compare opacity. And I'm going to say if opacity is less than 0, less than 100. If it's less than 100, I want to set the opacity of the enemy families. And this is where we're going to have to type in some code. We're going to do this self.opacity. So this means get the opacity of the object you just created. So it's self.opacity, and we're going to add 4 to it. So it's going to go up in ticks of 4. Okay? So in 25 ticks, it will go from the enemy has faded in to the enemy is fully there. Okay? And you're going to say, well, how does that help if the enemy spawns right underneath our player? So we're going to go to our player and is overlapping with the enemies. We're going to add another condition. And this other condition is going to say, same thing, compare opacity of the enemy and make sure that it's less than 100. So this is compare opacity, and this one I'm actually going to say if it's greater than or equal to 100. So I flipped that in my mind there. So if the enemy is overlapping but the opacity is less than 100, we're not going to set isAlive equal to 0. So right over here, I'm going to say let's spawn and restart the layout. So now my enemy should fade into view. So I have a chance to get away if something is about to spawn underneath me. I have a chance to get away. Like I got away from that one. I didn't hit it. I'm going to wait here for a little bit more and see if another one's spawning, collect some things. All right, now I'm going to hit one on purpose. Game freezes. Things start to destroy. Game resets. Okay. So let's do the same thing for collectibles and say collectibles aren't just going to show up, but collectibles are going to have that opacity move around on its own. Okay? So when the collectibles on created, we're going to steal that same thing. We're going to start with the set opacity to 0. So on created, we're going to add this action for the collectible, set opacity to 0. Okay, that's going to be the first thing that happens before the system wait. Then we're going to go back up, and in our every tick, we're going to make a new sub-event, and it's going to be as long as the collectible sub-event. So here we go here for this one. Right-click, add new sub-event. This one's going to be for the collectible. Compare opacity is our block we're looking for. And we're going to say as long as the opacity is less than 100, we'll do the same thing for the collectible. It's going to be set opacity, and it's going to be self.opacity, and we're going to add 4 to it. So that's going to add 4 to it so long as it's there, and then we'll add that same condition that you can't pick up the collectible until it's fully visible. So you can't get it right away. You can only overlap it when it's there. So let's see. collectible on destroyed, player is overlapping. We're going to have those destroyed. And then player is overlapping, collectible, add 1 to score. We're going to add a subcondition to this one. I think this is where we're going to pause. And I'm going to go around and float and see. So our other condition here is going to be that the collectible compare opacity is greater than or equal to 100. This means I can't pick those up early. So if we run this layout and check and see, everything's going to kind of fade into view. The enemies are fading in, the collectibles are fading in, and I'm going to try and get to one quickly so to show that there's a little bit of a delay before I can actually collect it. I don't think I'm quick enough right now. All right. What do we have until? We had an advisory, so we have until 9:04. I'm going to stop the live stream here, and then I'm going to do a little reminder. Let's do a save. Why haven't we saved yet? Yeah, because we're there, because we want our work to disappear. So I'm going to go Control save what I have. I'm going to stop the live stream here. Stream right now, where I'm going to go through and do a slow look at what we had. We added is alive. Is our stream actually going? Let's see. Live streaming. If that freezes again, like, call my attention right away. Don't stop hollering until you get me. Still waiting for the stream to start. Let's see. This says it's going. And there, YouTube is picked up. There we are. So it's streaming now. So I'm going to go back and do this overview. Is alive is set to 1. We added some things to on start of layout. We added some things to every tick. We added some things to sub-events of every tick. We added is alive equals 1 to the touch. We added an opacity check to collecting the object. We added is alive to the spawns. And we added an opacity check to overlapping with the enemies to give you a little bit of a second to get away. On our actual layout, the only thing we created was we changed this collect the white circles message starting with an opacity of 100. Name is text message. Okay? So hopefully that will give you enough to get back to where you need to be.